There, the back. Right there. There. Probably right now. You see.
Make
Have you done this
everything's
before?
good.
Interviewed somebody? Oh.
Anything that you remember as a child?
I don't remember when I was born, but I was born in 1920, and I was born in Waterman, Illinois, and lived there for a few years. Then we moved to Indiana, which Kokomo, and most of my childhood days.
And were you friends or no?
No, not until he was out of school until I was a senior one night when I walked in the drugstore where he worked downtown at
What was the name of it?
Humans,
Moon's.
those drugs.
Tell me about how you two met. And what happened with that?
I had a hard time meeting her. I kept downtown Kokomo. They have a square, and I used to drive down there in the car and drive around the square. And she worked at a theater that was on one side of the square, and I'd flash my light as I go around there and see her in there. And then I finally, after so long a time, I decided, well, I'm going to walk over there and ask her if she could have a date with me. I did. She says, no, I'm busy this week. I said, how about the next week? No, I'm busy again. And the third time I thought, well, this will be it. She said, no, I'm busy too. I just took it then that she didn't want to go. So, what was the reason anyway, Geneva?
The reason I didn't go? Because I had plans each time. Each time. Yeah.
So then how did it end up so that you guys ended up together? How did that all work out?
Well, finally he asked when
About
a
the fourth week.
time that I had an opening. And so he wanted to go down to, well, I think all we did was drive down to Indianapolis.
Which is 50-some miles.
50 miles. And then we ate at a drive-in.
We went down there and for 2 or 3 hours, and then we came on back.
Yeah.
And then after that broke the ice, so I slid in then and started calling on her quite often.
But then about that time, he was going to go into the service. So I think we only went about a month or so before he had to leave.
Because of World War II.
Yes.
Just both your parents' names.
Well, mother was Jenny Pauline Henderson, and then my father's name was Howard Burton Benjamin. So.
What about your grandparents? Do you know where they were from or much about them?
I think the Hendersons came from England.
What about you, Grandpa?
Well, my father's name was John Elmer Fleenor, and my mother was May Hannah Fleenor. And my father passed away when I was 5 years old. I just barely can remember. I was the youngest, the baby, and Geneva was the baby in her family too.
What about your grandparents? Do you remember? Do you know? Did you hear anything about them or where they were from?
Grandparents. Grandpa Fleenor was, he passed away before I was born, but he was a minister. And in fact, I have the Bible that he used up the cabin up there, and still has his name written in it and so forth. I don't know if there's any dates in it or not, but my grandma was, that was on my mother's side, was Cunningham was her name, and they lived down in near Scottsburg, Indiana, the southern part of Indiana.
Did you ever ask like what nationalities and where they came from, that kind of thing?
No, I think Fleenor was from the Scandinavian area.
So what was the Depression all about?
Well, I think I was about in first grade.
What was it like?
Well, when you're a kid, you really don't think you might have your family might have rough times, but you don't really think about it. I mean, in this world today, they make make the law about it, where then you just carry on and we go to school and I think they would give you like milk or something, glass of milk or something when you went to school. You didn't
remember
have
that,
milk?
but anyway, it was pretty rough then because we were very, very poor, and our family, and with no father and so forth, that a loaf of bread would cost 10 cents, and the milk, I don't know, it wasn't very much, maybe 25 cents or something like per gallon, but it wasn't very much. Gasoline was 10 cents a gallon, and it was kind of rough. In our family, Christmas time, we didn't have too much of a Christmas. We had things that was given to us by Salvation Army.
Tell me a little bit about like being in the Army and all that, and do you have any funny stories about that?
Yeah, why did I join? But
You had to go anyway.
Yeah, it was drafting fellows in the service, but I wasn't at the draft age at that time yet, so I just volunteered. I was going to be a big hero, and go off to war and kiss everybody goodbye, I left in December of 41, just right after Christmas. I stayed home for Christmas. Then I went down to Indianapolis and was inducted down there, and traveled from there to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then we went from there to Seattle, Washington, down the West Coast by train to San Francisco. And that's where I got my old duffel bag and a rifle and so forth like that, and I hardly knew which end to shoot from with a rifle. Never had one before. So anyway, we docked out of San Francisco and
wasn't out of Washington?
No, it was out of San Francisco. We went to rendezvous out in the Pacific. We was on the Pacific for 31 days, and as we was going past Pearl Harbor area, well, you couldn't see it, but we was in that area when we was going by there, and then we saw some other ships coming. We didn't know if it was Japanese or who it was coming, and we could see the ships approaching them. Must have been about 6 or 8 of them, and we were all buggy-eyed, wondering if that was the Japs coming after us. The food was lousy on the boat. In fact, we had meat that was spoiled, and they didn't realize it was spoiled, and they served us the food, and the meat was spoiled. So the regular, instead of doctoring us, they told us to go to the head, and stick our fingers down our throat and gag it up because food poisoning. So we was all, the whole gang of the guys was down there barfing all over. We didn't see any whales, but they said there was some sharks, but I didn't see them myself personally. That was nosed not pelicans, but these birds that around the west, the coast over there. What kind are those?
Emus?
No, they're
Not gulls. Not gulls.
I guess seagulls, what they call them. They would follow us out for about 3 or 4 days, and then at nighttime they would land and roost on the boat, and then when it get daylight they would fly around and so forth like that. But they followed us out for about 4 days, and when we dumped the garbage out at night, that's where they got their food and so forth. And about the 5th day, we didn't see any of them around. They must have took off and went back to the west coast.
So what were you doing that whole time?
Well, my dad worked at the Stellite. That was a factory that they made for airplanes. They made little thin things, and then
You had a bicycle, didn't you?
yeah, I
You
rode
ride to work because
on a bicycle.
gasoline was rationed out.
Yeah. So anyway, after high school, I worked there several year or two, I don't know, and then that's when I went to Chicago and took training for the Weather Bureau, and then went to Washington D.C. and worked for the Weather Bureau then for about a year. And that's where I was in D.C. when Jerry got back after 4 years or 4.5?
About 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
And then I came back out to Phoenix.
I got on the train and went back to Washington D.C. because I had a job there, and I had an apartment with just one girl then, but at one time we had about 3 or 4 girls in a house, and we all had rooms there. But
How about the fellows that were there?
well, there were some fellows at the Weather Bureau. Yeah. But it's funny. It's not funny, but everybody that worked in the Weather Bureau would all go out and do things together. We didn't date. We'd go out ice skating some, which I haven't done much ice skating, but we'd do that, or we'd go to different places. And
Sounds pretty funny.
funny? It wasn't funny. I mean, instead of like kids go now, they go kind of steady with everybody. Well, nobody went steady in those days. Nobody. When I was in high school, there were just a couple people, few people, very, very few people that ever went steady. Isn't that right? Everybody had dates with everybody, and you didn't stick to one, and you had dates with many. But anyway, let's see. So then I had to go back. I felt like I needed to go back and tell them that I was going to quit.
So she came out, and finally we went up to Prescott and got married
Yeah.
at Methodist Church there in Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back and started raising a family then. Cherry's number 1, and she was born in 46,
Mm-hmm.
and February 46. And after that, we had twins, Roger and Regina. And we only had her 6 months, and she passed away. She had an enlarged heart, but at that time they didn't do operations on. So anyway, that's how we ended up out here in Phoenix.
So where'd you guys live in Phoenix? How many places did you live?
Oh, at least 4 or 5, I think. Well, what's that one? What's the one on 3rd Street and then,
that's what Sherry's one.
oh, yeah.
It was upstairs, and we lived there.
I don't know, we're not getting these in order, I know.
No.
But the first place we lived was out there on 21st Place. Avenue. And that was when we were first married. It was out in the north area. We thought it was, but it wasn't that far north. And then Jerry would have to get a ride to the airport. Oh boy, it's gonna get hurt.
So what was Phoenix like in the 40s or the 50s?
City limits was east. On the east side was 24th Street, and south was about Henshaw or Buckeye. Buckeye Road was south, and central was called Center, and as far as north was about Camelback.
Yeah.
And west, I really don't know what the probably 19th Avenue. I don't know.
I don't even know.
I don't really remember that.
But I do know that there were only about 60,000 when we came.
Yeah.
And that was about nearly, wasn't there 60,000 in Kokomo when we left there? Or was it 30 or 40,000? It wasn't much bigger than Kokomo then.
But after we was out here, we found out that her dad was out here, and it was
in his younger days.
In his younger days, on an ostrich farm.
Yeah.
He used to have ostriches out here, and he worked on one of the farms.
Uh-huh.
And I thought maybe he was shooting a bull.
I did too. I didn't know.
Because I didn't know anything about it, and then we did find out later that they did have ostrich farms.
What kind of things do you remember from Phoenix that are gone now?
They used to have streetcars.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's the only way we got around was when we didn't have a car, and we'd ride the streetcar. In fact, when I got out of the service, I went to work for American Airlines back in 1945. Mm-hmm. And the way I used to, from Fillmore, I'd go down to Adams Street. That's where the streetcar ran from.
At the
on the west side, at the Capitol out that way. And then I'd ride it east down on Washington to 24th Street and walk from Washington
to
the airport. Mm-hmm. And the terminal building at that time was a little small building that was on the north side of the airport, next to Airline Way, they call it now. And then there's a railroad track.
Railroad track is?
Yeah.
But you know, when you go to the airport, there's a railroad track there. Oh, well, it used to be on the main road, but now they kind of changed it around a lot. But it was a house. Was that when Bob Rogers gave us that picture of the first terminal?
Yeah, and they used to have a bell that was in an arch out to the airport there that the people from the West Coast,
Hollywood
would fly over here. That was in DC-3s. That's an old two-engine aircraft. That's what American Airlines was using at that time. And they would fly over here and get married at this, I don't know, like a wedding bell place, I guess.
Yeah.
They had a big bell in it.
They still have the bell out there in Sherman, too.
I think so.
Yeah, they did. They used to.
So that's where I started with American Airlines here at Scarborough Airport.
What about that job? How'd that go?
Mine?
Yeah, how do you like it?
Oh, I started out, I think it was 75 cents an hour out there. And of course I stayed with them for 34 years, but I enjoyed it. like it used to be like a big family. That everybody worked with one another real great, and had a lot of fun.
And they would have parties for the and it was like one big happy family, and they would have parties like out to the hotels, and so that you could swim, have swimming parties at the hotels. And where are some of the hotels?
Oh, Camelback Inn?
Yeah, Camelback Inn and some of those places.
Yeah, they used to have an old donkey out there at Camelback Inn that would greet you when you drive in out there.
Uh-huh.
And Green Gables used to be a place there on 24th Street and Thomas that they had a horseman would ride a horse out to the gate, and then he would escort you back in your car to have show where to park and so forth. That was quite a deal.
Do you guys remember people ever riding horses around downtown Phoenix, or is that?
I remember them in Scottsdale when Scottsdale had that. What was that place? The Pink Pony, I think it was. Oh, in Scottsdale they'd have where you tie up your horse in the front of the places. Yeah. And there's a lot of riding horses around there. I don't remember seeing it in Phoenix much. But when we first moved into Yale, the 36th Street, we were right off 32nd. 36th Street was a dirt road, and then going out east was, what road was that? McDowell, I guess.
You mean north?
Going west, going east. Going east. Remember when the kids started going to the school? Papago. It was dirt, and then the one that goes up.
Oak.
No, it was McDowell. Remember there were big tall trees there. Go out to the Papago Park, even out there that way. That was all dirt. And another thing is, there's no malls at all, just downtown. And they had what dime store was that? We'd always go. You didn't have much of a choice. They had a drugstore on Central and Washington, and they had a little movie there. And then they had a dime store, and they had a dress shop that's still in business, I think.
What about any stories about your grandkids? Any good ones?
Oh dear.
Yeah, one of them, the first one was Devin Fleenor, I believe. And he was a problem child. He was always wanted to tie me up and everything like that when we was playing, and he'd always say, "It's the law."
Yeah.
And
so we got some good pictures of
that.
of him, and then the caption is always, "It's the law."
Yeah, and then he'd imitate, wanted tape on the tape machine that we had.
The news.
Like a news, Bill Close.
And who was the girl?
Mary Jo West.
Mary Jo West.
Right.
Yes.
And I guess you was Mary Jo West. I don't know. So anyway, we used to have fun doing that.
Oh, and then there was one time too, where Devin, he took things not literally, but what's the opposite of literally?
Figuratively?
Oh, I guess it was literally. He took it literally. Yeah, and I'd say we were trying to get grass to grow all over. There were spots that were bare, and then we had those stones going up the hill. Remember? And so he stayed on those. Well, but then And I don't know why, but I think I told him not to step on the grass. Well, I forget just how it was, but it seems like I said, how did I tell him that? Don't step on the grass. So what he does was go step on the bare spots. He'd go, and I'd say, I told you not to step on the grass when you're on the stones. And you said, I wasn't. I didn't step on the grass. I stepped on the ground. But I thought that was so funny because he was doing exactly what I told him. But he thought he was all right because he wasn't doing what I told him not to do.
So I got a question for you, Grandpa. Where did the whole yee? Where did that come from?
I don't know where that ever come from.
Everyone wants to know that.
Everybody's a Fleenor does that.
No, it's you, Grandpa.
No, you started, Gerald.
Did I start?
Yes.
Well, of course you started.
I don't know. Just
You want a Coke?
stir things up. No.
You can get a Coke.
I don't know where they ever started from.
Well, he likes to start those things. I can get up and
Okay.
come back.
All right, Grandpa. What about you? Do you got any? Think of any stories of Grandpa's kids or Sherry and Raj?
Well,
anytime they got you, did they do anything to really make you mad?
well, yeah, Sherry did one time that I felt bad afterwards, but she took crayons and went on the back of the house and was marking all over the block wall there, and it kind of disturbed me because I had to go clean it off and so forth. So I gave her a little paddling for it and told her not to do that anymore. And one thing about the kids, they were great. We had good relationship with our children and so forth, and we didn't have too much problems with them.
Except I think when they got teenage, they did do things just like calling out the window and going up with Judy Lambert and things like that the parents don't know about. Whoa!
That's on TV. So anyway, the first car that we got for
Joe, get her back.
us, that was an old Hudson Terraplane, and that was our first car that we had after we were out here, and I was working at American Airlines, and I worked part-time also because the pay wasn't that good with American Airlines, so I picked up a job at a tire place that was re-grooving tires on trucks, and these were big semi-trucks that had the dual tires on, and they would have to measure the tires, see which ones was worn down. So that was just a part-time job, but it was pretty rough. And they had, that's where I picked up extra money that helped us along at that time, because just on that salary, and then Geneva had Sherry, and then she was working until at that time, and then so I had to buckle down and get extra income. And then the car I was talking about, the old Hudson Terraplane, they called it. It was our first car, and we used it and had it till we moved down on Yale Street, 3239 East Yale. And that's where our grandkids came over to see us.
Gerald,
That's okay.
keep it there.
Devin, Joby and
I mean,
Roger.
Keep it.
That's okay.